It is late, not evening, not night. Late in the way history feels closest to the present. Late in the way the world grows quiet enough for old things to speak again. London in the year 1066 is still standing, still breathing, still unaware. The streets are narrow. The houses lean toward one another as if sharing secrets. Smoke lingers low in the air, trapped between timber walls and unfinished thoughts. The city believes it is alive, and it is. But it does not yet understand that something essential has already ended. No bells are ringing, no alarms sound, no one is running. There is no moment you could point to and say, "This is where the old world stopped." History rarely announces itself. It prefers silence. Somewhere far from London, on a hill already cooling with blood, a crown has lost its owner. And across the water, beyond the edge of the known, someone is listening. He does not rush, he does not shout. He waits. London waits too. It waits in markets and doorways, in taverns thick with smoke, in the slow rhythm of the river pressing against its banks. Merchants still argue over prices. Children still run through the mud. Torches still flicker along familiar walls. Everything looks the same. That is how it always begins. The city does not yet know that power is moving toward it, that decisions have already been made elsewhere, that its future has been discussed, measured, and quietly claimed. No swords are raised, no gates are forced. Not yet. Tonight, we are not watching a battle. We are watching the moment before history changes its direction, the moment when nothing appears to happen. The most dangerous moment of all. This is London before it understands what it is about to become. And once the change begins, it will not ask permission. Chapter 1: The King Who Came by Sea. London does not hear the news all at once. There is no announcement, no trumpet, no official voice declaring the end of a reign. The news arrives the way fear usually does, in fragments. A boatman mentions something strange he heard upriver. A merchant lowers his voice in a doorway. A noble closes a door more carefully than usual. The king is dead. Harold Godwinson, the man England placed its weight upon, has fallen. People argue about how it happened. Some insist an arrow struck his eye. Others say he was cut down where he stood. A few claim he lived, that he fled, that he survived, that he became someone else. These stories do not matter. What matters is the silence that follows them, because when a throne is empty, the silence never lasts. London waits. It does not celebrate, it does not mourn, it hesitates. A city that has learned, slowly and painfully, that kings come and go, but consequences remain. Across the channel, in Normandy, a man receives the same news. He does not argue about arrows. He does not debate rumors. He hears only one thing: there is room. William does not speak loudly. He does not need to. Ambition has weight. It settles into the room without sound. He has prepared for this moment longer than anyone in London suspects. He has rehearsed it in silence, measured it, imagined it. The crown of England is not a dream to him. It is a conclusion. Ships are gathered, not hastily, not in panic. With the patience of someone who expects history to cooperate. Wood creaks, ropes tighten, men board quietly. Horses are led onto vessels that do not care what they carry. William does not announce his intentions. He lets preparation speak. The channel lies between him and London. Dark, cold, indifferent. It has carried traitors, refugees, invaders. It does not remember them. It will not remember William either. But London will. Back in the city, the river moves as it always has. The Thames does not warn anyone. It carries boats, whispers, and the illusion of normal life. Markets open, bread is baked, arguments continue. But something has changed. Not in the streets, in the air. London senses it before it understands it. A tightening, a pressure, the quiet knowledge that no one has asked the city what it wants. William does not rush London. He knows better. A city like this does not break under force, it breaks under inevitability. So he moves around it, cuts it off, lets hunger, uncertainty, and calculation do the work. He waits. London learns a new feeling. Isolation. The roads do not feel safe. Supplies hesitate. Allies grow cautious. The city begins to understand that resistance requires something it no longer has: time. When the gates finally open, they do not open in defeat. They open in exhaustion. William enters not as a conqueror shouting victory, but as a man stepping into a future he already owns. On Christmas Day, the crown is placed on his head. Shouts echo inside the abbey. Soldiers misunderstand them. Fire breaks out. It is chaotic, confused, undignified. History often is. But the crown does not fall. London does not cheer. London watches. And in that watching, something ancient ends. Not with a scream, not with a battle, but with acceptance. A king has come by sea. And the city, whether it understands it or not, has already begun to change. Chapter 2. Stone does not argue. William does not trust cities, not truly. Cities remember too much. They talk, they gather. They decide things when they think no one is watching. London especially. It is wealthy, crowded, confident, in ways that do not ask permission. William understands this immediately, so he does not speak to London, he builds. Power, when it is serious, does not explain itself. It places weight on the ground and waits for everything else to adjust. The first structure is temporary, wood, fast, unapologetic. A keep rises near the river where Roman walls once stood, a deliberate choice. William is not interested in new ground. He prefers ground that has already been conquered. London watches the structure appear, at first with curiosity, then irritation, then recognition. This is not shelter, this is not defense, this is positioning. The wooden tower says only one thing: I am here now. But William does not believe in wood. Wood burns. Wood rots. Wood invites resistance. Wood can be pulled apart by enough hands working together. William has seen this before. He wants something that cannot be negotiated with. Stone. Ships cross the channel again. Not with soldiers this time, but with pale blocks of Caen stone. Stone quarried in Normandy. Stone that carries origin with it. Stone that does not forget where it came from. Each block is heavy, unreasonable, difficult to move. That is the point. London does not ask why the stone is coming. It already knows. The White Tower begins to rise, not quickly, not dramatically. Deliberately, layer by layer, wall by wall. It does not reach upward in celebration. It presses downward, into the ground, into memory. This is not architecture meant to inspire. It is architecture meant to endure. Thick walls, narrow windows, angles designed to deny comfort. Nothing about it invites admiration. It invites obedience. London feels the tower before it understands it. It interrupts sight lines. It interrupts thought. Wherever you stand, it is present. A constant peripheral weight. Some resent it, some admire it. Most simply grow quiet around it, which is exactly what it was designed to do. Stone changes behavior. People walk differently when walls do not move. They speak differently when doors are thick. They think differently when escape is unlikely. The tower does not threaten, it waits. Inside, rooms are built not for comfort, but for control. Spaces that echo. Spaces that remember voices. Places where time slows and thoughts grow loud. The tower is many things at once: a fortress, a residence, a treasury, a prison. But above all, it is a message. You are not alone anymore. London learns this lesson gradually. Merchants adjust routes, nobles measure words, meetings become quieter. Rebellion does not disappear. It relocates into silence. Stone outlasts arguments. It does not care who was king before. It does not care who complains. It stands. And as it stands, London changes around it. Wood gives way to stone elsewhere. Churches follow, walls follow, halls follow. The city begins to harden, not emotionally, structurally. This is how control spreads, not through violence, but through permanence. Not through fear, but through inevitability. By the time the White Tower is complete, London no longer imagines a future without it. That is the true conquest. William does not need to watch the city. The tower does that for him. It watches without blinking, without mercy, without sleep, and London slowly, unconsciously, learns to live under its gaze. Chapter 3: The Replacement. Conquest does not end when the gates open. That is only the visible part. The real work begins afterward. William understands this. Stone controls bodies, but systems control time. And time is more obedient. The first changes are subtle. No announcements, no proclamations shouted in the streets. Just substitutions. Men with familiar faces disappear from councils. They are not arrested, they are not exiled. They are simply not invited back. In their place, new men arrive. They speak differently. They dress differently. They carry documents instead of stories. The city notices but cannot quite explain what feels wrong. London has always had rulers. It has never had this many clerks. Power begins to speak in ink. Scrolls replace oaths. Signatures replace memory. Names are written down. Once written, they are difficult to remove. Old laws still exist, but they are no longer consulted. They remain like furniture in a room no one uses anymore. Present, ignored. New law arrives quietly, not in English, not in words the city grew up with. Latin first, French next. Languages of distance. Languages that do not belong to the street. English remains, but it begins to change its role. It becomes practical, domestic, private, the language of work, of complaint, of apology. The language of authority now sounds different, sharper, cleaner, less forgiving. In court, voices soften, not from respect, from uncertainty. When you do not fully understand the words being used against you, you listen more carefully, you interrupt less, you accept outcomes you might have argued before. The city learns this lesson quickly. Land changes hands without moving. Fields remain where they are. Houses stand unchanged, but ownership moves. Transferred through documents few can read and fewer can challenge. The old lords fade. Some remain reduced, some leave, some adapt. Most learn to speak less. The church changes next, not in belief, in alignment. New bishops arrive, educated, measured, correct. They bring order. Order has weight. Church courts grow. Their authority expands sideways, then downward. They hear disputes. They record decisions. They create precedent. Precedent is memory that argues back. London becomes a city where power no longer needs to shout. It files. Merchants notice first. Trade now requires permission. Routes require approval. Weights are measured, tolls counted. Someone always watches the counting. Guilds begin to form, not yet in strength, but in intention. People group together, not for rebellion, for survival. This is how cities respond to invisible pressure. They organize, they adapt, they endure. The tower remains in the background. It does not interfere, it does not need to. Its presence is already assumed. London learns a new truth. Power no longer needs to stand in front of you. It can sit at a desk. And the most unsettling realization arrives last. The city is still functioning. Markets open, boats arrive, children run, arguments continue. Life feels normal. That is how replacement succeeds, not by destruction, but by continuity. By the time London understands what has changed, the people making decisions are no longer the people who remember the city before. The old world has not been overthrown. It has been overwritten, and overwritten things rarely come back. Chapter 4. The City That Learned to Obey. London does not change overnight, it adjusts. The streets are still narrow, the houses still lean toward one another, smoke still gathers low in the air. But people move differently now. Not dramatically, not enough to notice at first. Just enough. Voices lower when discussing certain things. Eyes linger longer before speaking. Conversations end sooner than they used to. No one announces these changes. They spread quietly the way habits do. London has learned something important. Being watched does not require a watcher. The tower does not patrol the streets. It does not chase. It does not interfere. It exists. That is enough. Merchants adjust their tone, not because they are told to, but because experience has become expensive. A delayed shipment, an unexpected toll, a license that takes longer than it should. Nothing illegal, nothing provable, just inconvenient. Inconvenience is an excellent teacher. Meetings grow smaller, not incised in ambition. Plans that once reached outward now fold inward, safer, quieter, more careful. Disputes still happen, but they move faster to resolution. People learn when arguing is no longer productive. The city does not feel oppressed. That is the unsettling part. It feels managed. At night, the streets empty earlier, not because of fear, because of instinct, a sense that being elsewhere is better, when nothing good is gained by being seen. Guards are present, but rarely active. They stand where they can be noticed. They walk routes that become predictable. Predictability creates calm. Calm creates compliance. Children are told new rules, not official ones, small ones. Don't run there. Don't shout about that. Not near the river. Not near the tower. They do not ask why. Children adapt faster than adults. Alehouses grow louder inside and quieter near the doors. Stories change shape. Jokes become indirect. Criticism learns to disguise itself. No one forbids speech. People simply learn which words require effort afterward. The market still thrives. That is important. Power prefers prosperity. Prosperous cities cooperate more willingly. Coins circulate smoothly. Goods arrive on time. Disputes are resolved. London is busy. Busy cities do not ask questions. The church reinforces the rhythm. Sermons emphasize order, stability, obedience framed as peace, not force. Peace. The message settles in slowly. Good people have nothing to fear. London absorbs this. It has always been practical. At the river, boats come and go. Sailors glance toward the tower without knowing why. Habit forms quickly. At the gates, records are kept. Names written, times noted. Writing remembers what people forget. The city does not resist. Resistance would require clarity. This system offers none. Only outcomes. And so London learns the final lesson of conquest. Control does not arrive screaming. It arrives explaining. By the time anyone considers pushing back, the cost feels too high. Not in blood, in disruption. Life is comfortable enough, predictable enough, safe enough. And so the city obeys. Not because it is weak, but because it has learned that survival does not require defiance, only adjustment. Above it all, the tower remains still. It does not need to move. The city has already moved for it. Chapter 5: The Language of Peace. Power prefers to be believed. Force can silence a city. Belief can reorganize it. William understands this, so he does not argue with faith. He aligns with it. The church is already everywhere, in bells, in calendars, in birth, in marriage, in death. You do not need to conquer something that already shapes how people think. You only need to adjust its direction. New bishops arrive quietly. They do not look like conquerors. They look like administrators, educated, measured, correct. They speak with calm certainty. Certainty calms others. Nothing about doctrine changes. That would invite resistance. What changes is emphasis. Sermons begin to sound different, not threatening, reassuring. Order is praised. Stability is praised. Obedience is framed not as submission, but as peace. Chaos becomes the enemy, not injustice, not imbalance. Chaos. And chaos, conveniently, is anything that disrupts the new order. London listens. It has always listened to the church. The church speaks slowly with authority that feels older than kings. Church courts expand quietly. Disputes that once belonged to families now belong to records, marriage, inheritance, contracts, moral conduct, all written, all remembered. Written judgment feels cleaner than shouted judgment, more final. Monasteries grow, not outwardly, internally. Scriptoria fill with ink and silence. Monks copy texts by candlelight, their work repetitive, exact, unarguable. They preserve knowledge. They also standardize it. When words are copied often enough, they become difficult to question. Latin remains the language of God. French becomes the language of authority. English becomes the language of the home. This separation feels natural. That is why it works. London absorbs the rhythm. Feast days, fast days, holy days. Time itself begins to align with order. Bells ring not to warn, but to structure the day. They tell you when to stop, when to start, when to gather, when to disperse. You do not argue with bells. The church does not threaten rebellion. It makes rebellion feel unnecessary, unwise, ungodly. Faith becomes a stabilizing force. Stability becomes a moral good, and moral goods are rarely questioned. London begins to repeat the language it hears. Order is good, peace is good, stability is good, disruption becomes suspicious. This is how belief reshapes behavior, not by force, by framing. William does not need to appear in sermons. His presence is implied. Authority flows downward, from God to church to crown. This hierarchy feels ancient, inevitable. The tower stands in stone. The church stands in meaning. Together they leave little space for confusion. London does not feel conquered. It feels guided. And guidance is easier to accept than command, especially when it promises peace. By now, the city no longer asks who decided this order. It only asks how to live within it. That is the final refinement of control, when authority no longer needs to defend itself, when it is simply assumed. Faith continues. Markets continue. Life continues. Smoothly, quietly, predictably. And London, wrapped in bells and stone and reassurance, rests inside a system that feels eternal, even though it is not. Chapter 6. The City Under Record. The city begins to be counted, not suddenly, not publicly, quietly. Names are written down, not to honor them, not to remember them, to fix them in place. Land is measured, fields walked, boundaries traced. What once belonged to memory now belongs to parchment. Measurement changes behavior. When something is measured, it becomes manageable. When it is manageable, it becomes governable. London feels this shift without understanding it. Houses remain where they are. Stalls open as they always have. The river flows unchanged. But something invisible has tightened. Clerks multiply. They do not carry weapons, they carry lists. They sit quietly in rooms that smell of ink and wax, asking questions that seem harmless. How much land? How many animals? How many people? Questions sound polite. Answers become permanent. Once recorded, a thing does not forget itself. A man may argue. A document does not. Taxes become predictable. Predictability feels fair. Fairness feels legitimate. coins move upward through the system, in smooth, regular rhythms, not seized, collected. London adapts quickly. Merchants keep better accounts, households count more carefully. Words like due, owed, and required enter daily speech. Debt becomes a quiet companion, not ruinous, persistent. The courts rely on records now, not testimony, not reputation. Paper decides. People begin to fear mistakes more than accusations. Errors can be corrected, records cannot. At the gates, names are checked, not suspiciously, routinely. Routine removes emotion. London learns a new truth. If you are not written down, you do not fully exist. If you are written incorrectly, you exist incorrectly. The city grows quieter around officials, not from fear, from calculation. People prepare documents in advance. They keep copies. They learn to speak clearly and briefly. They learn that excess explanation invites scrutiny. Life feels orderly. Order feels safe. Safety feels moral. The tower remains still. It does not involve itself in numbers. Stone does not count, but stone protects those who do. From this point on, rebellion becomes expensive, not dangerous, expensive. It costs time, it costs permission, it costs exemptions that no longer arrive. The city understands this intuitively. London has always understood cost. By the time the great surveys are complete, the city has been transformed without spectacle. No buildings destroyed, no crowds dispersed, just organized. People still move freely. They simply move within systems that remember them. This is the quietest form of control when the city participates in its own containment. London is not imprisoned, it is documented. And once a city has been fully written down, it can be ruled from anywhere. Chapter 7. The King Who Did Not Need to Be Present. There comes a moment when power no longer needs a face. At first, William is everywhere. Seen, discussed, anticipated, his movements matter. His presence shifts rooms, but gradually something changes. The city begins to function without him, not in rebellion, in efficiency. Orders arrive already written, decisions arrive already finalized. Officials speak with authority that does not require confirmation. The king's absence does not weaken the system, it confirms it. London notices this in small ways. Petitions are answered without delay. Disputes are resolved without appeal. Taxes are collected without protest. No one asks when the king will return. There is nothing for him to do here. William rules from distance, from Normandy, from courts elsewhere, from places the city will never see. Distance no longer matters. The rules have learned to walk on their own. This is the moment control matures, when authority no longer needs to demonstrate itself, when obedience becomes habit. London adjusts its expectations. Power no longer feels personal. It feels environmental, like weather, like stone, like time. Officials speak in measured tones. They do not threaten, they remind. This is how things are done now. The most powerful sentence a system can produce. The tower remains unmoving. Its gates open and close on schedule. Its presence is assumed. No one checks whether it is still watching. Of course it is. The church continues its rhythm. Bells ring, calendars turn, holy days arrive on time. Faith reinforces routine. Routine reinforces obedience. Records continue to grow. Ink dries, scrolls stack, names remain. The city becomes legible. Legibility is power. London begins to anticipate authority. It corrects itself before correction arrives. It complies before command is given. It adapts before pressure is applied. This is the final efficiency of rule, when enforcement becomes unnecessary. Children grow up inside this structure. They do not remember another way. They inherit obedience as normality. Old stories fade, not erased, unneeded. The city no longer asks who is in charge. It asks what is required. And somewhere far from London, William continues his life. He governs territories. He manages disputes. He prepares legacies, but he does not need to watch London. London is already watching itself. This is how empires are built, not through constant presence, but through systems that persist long after the ruler is gone. One day, William will die. The city already knows this. It does not matter. The system does not rely on him anymore. That is the true conquest, not of land, not of people, but of behavior. London has become predictable. Predictability is stability. Stability is control. And control, once perfected, does not need a king to stand beside it. It only needs to continue. Chapter 8. The king dies. The system continues. William does not die dramatically. There is no final speech, No symbolic last act. His body simply fails him. The man who crossed the sea, who placed stone upon stone, who reorganized a kingdom without asking permission, is reduced to flesh again. His death does not arrive in London as shock. It arrives as information. Written, carried, delivered. A king has died, and the city pauses briefly. Markets do not close. Ships do not turn back. Courts do not adjourn. Records continue to be written. The bells ring, but they ring on schedule. This is how London knows something important has changed. Nothing stops. William's body is buried, but William's system does not lie down with him. It remains standing. Officials do not wait for instruction. They already have it. The procedures exist. The hierarchies are clear. The documents are complete. Power moves smoothly from one name to another. Not because the new ruler is strong, but because the structure no longer requires strength. Succession happens quietly, not without tension, but without collapse. London watches, then returns to work. The tower remains unmoved. It does not recognize death. Stone does not mourn. The church offers prayers, measured, formal. Faith acknowledges loss, then reinforces continuity. God remains, order remains. Children hear the news secondhand. They ask questions. Adults answer carefully. This is how it goes. Memory begins to edit itself. William becomes a name, then a title, then a reference. His choices remain active. Long after his voice is silent, his buildings still cast shadows. His laws still decide outcomes. His language still shapes authority. This is when conquest becomes permanent, when the origin no longer matters. London realizes it does not need to know the king. It needs to understand the rules. The city has crossed a threshold from rule by presence to rule by process. Power has become abstract, difficult to confront, impossible to remove. People adjust faster than they expect. They always do. William is remembered, but he is no longer necessary. And that is the final transformation. When a ruler becomes optional, but the system becomes eternal. London continues, because it has been built to continue. Chapter 9. The City That Forgot. Forgetting does not happen suddenly, it settles in. At first, people remember clearly. They speak of before and after, they compare, they complain, they recall names. But memory requires effort. Habit does not. Children are born into a city that already works this way. They do not know what was replaced, they know only what exists. For them, the tower has always been there. Stone feels ancient, even when it is not. The language of authority is learned early. Forms, rules, expectations. They absorb them the way children absorb weather, without judgment. Old stories are still told, but they sound unfinished, unclear. Why things were different seems less important than how things are done now. The names fade first, not erased, just unused. People still speak of kings, but they do not speak of alternatives. London becomes efficient at forgetting. Not deliberately, practically. Markets thrive. Streets expand. Trade grows heavier, louder, faster. Busy cities remember less. Records become the official memory, written, indexed, stored. They do not capture feeling, only outcome. When memory lives on parchment, it loses its voice. The church continues to speak of continuity, of order, of tradition. Tradition no longer means what was. It means what has been repeated longest. People stop asking when the change happened. They ask how to succeed within it. Even resistance adapts. It learns new language and new forms, new limits. Nothing openly challenges the structure. Everything navigates it. The city feels stable. Stability becomes virtue. Virtue becomes identity. London begins to think of itself as inevitable, as if it could never have been otherwise. That is the final silence. Not when voices are suppressed, but when questions no longer form. Somewhere, a storyteller forgets a detail. A child hears a story incorrectly. A phrase is shortened. A cause is replaced with an outcome. And history becomes shape, without explanation. The city has not lost its past. It has misplaced it. The streets still carry echoes, but no one pauses long enough to hear them. London moves forward, because forward is easier, when backward is unclear. And so the city forgets. Not violently, not deliberately, but completely enough. Closing. Nothing was ever announced. Nothing was ever announced. There was no moment when someone stood in the streets and declared that the world had changed. No speech, no warning, no agreement. The city simply adjusted. One habit at a time, one rule at a time, one generation at a time. Stone replaced wood. Records replaced memory. Routine replaced choice. And all of it felt reasonable. That is how lasting power works. It does not arrive violently. It arrives convincingly. By the time anyone wonders, when things stopped being negotiable, they already are. London did not fall, it continued. And continuity, when shaped carefully, it can accomplish what force never could. The tower still stands, not because it is feared, but because it has become normal. Most people do not resist what feels permanent. They live inside it. They teach it to their children. They call it tradition. History, in the end, is rarely about dramatic moments. It is about quiet ones, moments when no one stops you, moments when no one needs to. The past does not disappear. It is layered over, covered carefully, until it becomes difficult to reach. And someday, someone walks these streets and feels a weight they cannot name, a presence without a face, a rule without an author. They do not ask who built it. They ask how to live with it. That is when history knows it has succeeded. Because the most enduring changes are the ones that no longer require explanation. Nothing was ever announced, and that is why it worked.